Hello Pokemon fans, and welcome back to another video segment provided to you by the Pokemon Evolutionaries. As always, I am Professor K.
And I am N.
And today we'll be taking a look at N's second place finishing Zoroark deck in our local tournament. N created his own version of the Zoroark deck, which we have seen a little bit of play of competitively, but overall it is a fairly unknown deck. N is quite the fan of decks that are not quite as common as others, and this is one in particular that he really came to enjoy and has been working on for a very long time. His build is a little bit different than the ones that we have seen so far, so it definitely is worth taking a look at considering that he did so well with it. And again, from myself over here, I'd like to say again, congratulations on your great performance.
Thank you very much, Professor.
And with that, let's go ahead and dive right in and take a look to see exactly what makes this deck tick so well. Alright, so the first Pokemon we'll take a look at here is Zorua. Zorua is an interesting Pokemon in that it is a 50 HP Darkness type Pokemon, basic of course, with 2 attacks. The first one is the only one that we'll be focusing on, and that is only in the potential possibility that you need to use it. For 1 Darkness energy, you can use Ascension. Search your deck for a card that evolves from this Pokemon and put it onto this Pokemon. Of course, it counts as evolving this Pokemon for the turn, and you shuffle your deck afterwards. Now this can be used if you don't have Zoroark in your hand, but you do have a Darkness energy, and it allows you to immediately evolve and make use of him on the next turn.
And also, this card with Zoroark's attack Ascension is very good against the much feared Pyro Archeops deck, for which Ascension you search for your deck and not your hand. I actually came across a Pyro Archeops deck, and with that Ascension, it was how I was able to win.
Yes, it was quite the interesting matchup, because as some of you may not know, Archeops has the ability that once it evolves from Archon, you can no longer evolve, neither player as a matter of fact, can evolve their Pokemon from their hands, so the only way to get around it is going to be Yveltal, or in this instance, Zorua's Ascension attack. So, now that we've taken a look at Zorua, let's go ahead and look at what makes him so great. The evolution. We're going to first take a look at 3 different Zoroark that use a specific attack. Now, the first attack that we have here is the one we're going to use the most. Again, Zoroark is a Stage 1, 100 HP Darkness type Pokemon. Brutal Bash is the attack that we want to try to make use of the most. For 1 double colorless energy, it does 20 damage times the number of Dark Pokemon that you have in play. You can also use Dark Rush for 2 Darkness energies, which does 20 damage times the number of damage counters on this Pokemon. But as I said, we're going to focus more on Brutal Bash. Brutal Bash is a really, really good attack once you start building up your bench, and that is the goal in this deck. Get as many Pokemon as you can in play, and get as many Zoroark as you can, because as you know, a 100 HP Pokemon can be easily knocked out by a lot of things. But the trade-off to get 2 prize knockouts for 1 prize is definitely well worth it, as was proved by N's deck here in this case in point.
And we will explain the Brutal Bash in a bit, but I just want to say quickly, Dark Rush is actually one of the best, if not the ultimate outrage move in my opinion. As Professor can explain a little bit more about that.
Oh, absolutely. The fact that you can do 20 damage times the number of damage counters is more powerful than any of the other outrage moves that are out there. Everything else seems to be either 20 plus or 30 plus 10 for each damage counter that's on that Pokemon. So you can actually Dark Rush with 90 damage counters on yourself for 180 damage, which can only be added to with Muscle Band and Silver Bangle.
And that may not seem like it would happen very much, but I can tell you from experience it happens more than you think. And since that card is not well known, people are going to think, ooh, 90 HP. Yeah, do it. Biggest mistake ever.
Yes, if you have the Darkness energy on there instead of the double colorless, you will definitely make your opponent pay with that attack. So, you're wondering now, you have 4 Zorua and 3 Zoroark. Where's the next one? Well, there is 1 Tech Zoroark that is used in this deck. We'll take a look at that card right now. This Zoroark here is also a Stage 1, 100 HP Dark type Pokemon. This is Black and White promo number 9. The card that makes this legal still in the competitive format is that there is a secret rare in Next Destinies that is this exact replica, with different artwork of course, with the same HP and the same attacks. Cards that do have the same HP and the same attacks are legal in competitive play, even if they were printed in sets that are no longer in circulation. So, we'll look at the first attack here for 1 Darkness energy. You can Nasty Plot. Search your deck for a card and put it into your hand. Shuffle your deck afterwards. This is essentially computer search for 1 energy. You don't have to discard anything. So if you really, really need a card next turn, say a supporter or an item card that you can use right away, Nasty Plot is definitely well worthwhile. I'm sorry, not right away, for the next turn. Okay.
But the attack that really makes this card special is Foul Play.
There is no other attack in the competitive format right now that could possibly replicate what Foul Play does. For 1 double colorless energy, again, just like Brittle Bash, for 1 double colorless energy, you can choose one of your defending Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack.
That is all. Unlike Mew and Kecleon, you do not need to follow the energy requirements.
No, it is not necessary for you to meet the exact energy requirements of your opponent's cards. So even if their attack requires 4 energy, for a single double colorless, you can use it. The only stipulation is that you have to follow the text underneath. So if it says that you are required to discard an energy card, you do still have to follow that. That is the only thing that can possibly hinder this attack. Other than that, Foul Play is an overwhelmingly powerful attack, considering that there are so many attackers out there that hit for so much damage, and you can do it for far less energy.
That alone makes it way superior to Mews and Kecleons.
Absolutely. Alright, so now that we've taken a look at the Zora and the Zoroark, the main attacker in the deck, let's take a look at some of the side and support Pokemon. We run in here 2 Darkrai EX. Darkrai EX is a very, very well-known card, considering that it's been in the format for an extremely long time. This card is, of course, from Dark Explorers, and it is very powerful. It used to have a whole lot more powerful as an attack card, but has now become more of a support card. The reason that we run this is specifically for the Dark Cloak ability. Dark Cloak allows you to retreat for free if you have a Darkness Energy attached to your Pokemon. Now, it doesn't work so much for Zoroark if you have a double colorless, obviously, but it does help with the other Pokemon that we have in the lineup that we'll be showing you here shortly. Alright, so the next Pokemon, the most powerful attacker in the format right now. We have 2 Yveltal EX. Yveltal EX, of course, has 2 attacks. Evil Ball for 1 darkness and 1 colorless energy. It allows you to do 20 damage plus 20 more for each energy attached to both Pokemon, the active and the defending. It is by far the most powerful attack in the game and the most limitless... take that back. It is an absolutely limitless attack in that you can do an infinite number of damage. So we have Yveltal for that, but in this particular deck, the main reason why we have this Yveltal is for the second attack. Y-Cyclone is the energy acceleration in this deck for Zoroark. So you're going to attach a Darkness Energy and a double colorless, hit for 90 damage, and then take that double colorless off of Yveltal EX and put it onto a Zoroark. That is the best way to power up this Zoroark, and it allows you to make sure that you get that energy out and still be able to hit for a decent amount of damage before you need to retreat the Yveltal on the next turn. So that is why we run the Yveltal EX.
So when combined with Yveltal EX, Zoroark, and Darkrai, they're just like a tag team, really.
Yes, they really are. Okay, so we also have 1 copy of the regular Yveltal, 130 HP, Darkness type basic Pokemon. The only reason why we have him is for Oblivion Wing. For 1 Darkness Energy, you can do 30 damage and attach a Darkness Energy card from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon in the case that you start running out of energy. So, with that, we have the entire Pokemon lineup here in front of us. And we will take a look next at our supporter line. The supporter line is also interesting in that it does not run the normal count of supporters that we see in competitive decks in general. Our first supporter we'll be taking a look at here is Professor Juniper, which is arguably the best draw support card in the game. Professor Juniper allows us to discard our hand and draw a fresh 7 cards. If you have anything in your hand that's worthwhile, it can be a little bit painful to use, but most times than not, it will allow us to get more cards than any other card as far as draw support goes. so we all know what Professor Juniper does. Let's see, our next supporter card that we're taking a look at here, we run 3 Colress. Now, the reason for running so many Colress is that the idea in this deck is to get out as many basic Pokemon, or in general, as many Pokemon as possible onto the bench. And with a full bench, Colress becomes so much more useful in that you will be able to draw even more cards more times than not than Professor Juniper. If you have 5 on the bench and your opponent has 5 on the bench, you get to draw 10 cards. That's why Colress is such a powerful card, especially in decks like this where it is extremely important to fill up that bench. Our next supporter, this is where it gets a little strange. 2N? That's it? Really?
Go figure. I put 2 of me.
Yeah, 2 of himself. That's all that's in this deck. Just 2. Why? Well, truth be told, it doesn't do as much good in this deck as the other draw supporters. In the beginning of the game, it is good to be able to shuffle in and draw a fresh 6. Or if your opponent has taken way more prizes than you, it's good for hand disruption. But in this kind of a deck, you want to draw as many cards as possible, and Colress and Juniper allow you to do that much more so than N. So that is why there's only 2 copies of N. Next, we have 2 copies of Skyla. Skyla, of course, allows you to search your deck for any trainer card whatsoever, whether it be a supporter for next turn, a stadium card, or an item card. And you will see exactly what the item cards we'll be looking for, in particular, and stadiums, of course, that this deck takes advantage of once we move on to that. We do have a couple more supporters to take a look at, though. In the meantime, we have 1 copy of Lysander. Lysander is the newest version of Pokemon Catcher in a supporter form. With a Lysander, you can automatically just select a Pokemon on your opponent's bench and bring it up to the active spot, and that is it. That way, you are using your supporter for the turn, but it is highly beneficial if you have no other supporters to use, you don't need to draw anything, and you need to get something off the bench that's highly important.
And now we go to a backbone supporter of this deck.
Yes. 2 copies of Pokemon Fan Club. Pokemon Fan Club allows you to search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand. This is our engine for powering up Zoroark. Now granted, of course, the other searching cards that we have to look up Pokemon are very good, but in supporter form, for free, we can search any 2 basic Pokemon, including Pokemon EX. So we can pull out a Darkrai and an Yveltal, we can pull out Zorua, we can pull out a regular Yveltal. Any of those Pokemon are searchable with Pokemon Fan Club. Again, you're using your supporter for the turn, but when you're using it to add damage to Zoroark's Brutal Bash attack, it is so worth it. Alrighty, so that about does it for the supporter lineup in this deck. Again, it is a very different line that you see in most decks, but in this kind of a deck, it works very well. So, onto the item cards. To search out Zorua, we run 3 Level Ball. You can search your deck for a Pokemon with 90 HP or less with this card and put it into your hand. Zorua is the only Pokemon that is searchable that's under 90 HP with Level Ball. You need a constant stream of Zorua and Zoroark to be on the bench and ready to go. As I said, it does get knocked out easily, but trading 2 prizes for 1 is always well worth it. So 3 copies of Level Ball work for this deck very well. Next, we have 2 copies of Ultra Ball. Discard 2 cards from your hand and search your deck for any Pokemon that you want to get. So this lets you get out everything else. Lets you pull out Zoroark, lets you pull out Yveltal EX, regular Yveltal, and Darkrai. Just a good searching card for Pokemon in general. It just costs you a couple cards to use. And if you don't want to do that, we have an unusual aspec in this card in Master Ball. Now this is something that we never see. Master Ball allows you to search your deck for any Pokemon for free. It's that simple. When you run a deck that is very important for you to have Pokemon, this is the perfect aspec. Computer search also works as well, but Master Ball is the better option, and has proved that with his build in this deck. So, to add extra damage to our Zoroark, because even a Brutal Bash With a full bench, we'll do 120 damage. We run 2 copies of Silver Bangle. Silver Bangle adds 30 damage to any kind of attack done by non-EX Pokemon to Pokemon EX. So now, Brutal Bash, hitting for a maximum of 120, now hits for a maximum of 150. Now we're almost there, so there is some other things that we need to do. But when Silver Bangle isn't applicable and you're not facing Pokemon EX, you can attach Muscle Band. Muscle Band does 20 damage extra to any Pokemon whatsoever. Sometimes all you need is that extra 20 damage to knock out a Pokemon that's in play. So Muscle Band will allow us to be able to hit that number. Overall, anytime you can increase your damage, it is always good to use. So we run those 2 copies of Muscle Band for that reason. We also run 2 copies of Startling Megaphone. Now, this is a kind of deck that Garb Odor does not hurt very much at all. The only ability in this deck is Dark Cloak, and more times than not, it's not a necessity. Dark Cloak is good to get Yveltal EX and Yveltal and Darkrai out of the active spot if necessary. Of course, Zoroark takes more advantage of using a double colorless energy, but it's always good to be able to discard your opponent's tools, especially if they have Muscle Bands or Silver Bangles attached to them, or even Float Stones. A lot of decks can rely on that require you to retreat. Alright, so the next 2 cards we have are 2 copies of Professor's Letter. Always good to be able to search out your basic energy in a pinch. Professor's Letter lets you pull out 2 basic energy, no questions asked, no discarding, no nothing. Just a great energy searching card.
And for the very, very few times that Garb Odor is in play, or whenever you're asleep and all that, we have Escape Rope.
2 copies of Escape Rope to be exact. If you ever find yourself in a position where you are asleep or paralyzed and you cannot get out of the active spot, because even though you have Darkrai, you cannot retreat when you are paralyzed or asleep. Escape Rope allows you to get yourself out of the active spot and forces your opponent as well to switch their active out with a Pokemon on the bench. So always a very good switching card. Always good to run at least 1 copy. In this deck, we run 2. Okay, now, as I said before, Zoroark hits for 150 damage with a full bench and a Silver Bangle. So what do we do to one-hit knock out those Pokemon EX that have 180 damage? Well, first of all, we have a way to help the situation with 4 Hypnotoxic Laser. Hypnotoxic Laser automatically poisons your opponent's Pokemon, and with a coin flip, if you land on heads, also puts it to sleep. So now that 150 turns into 160. Used in combination with 2 copies of Verbank City Gym, which put 2 extra damage counters on poison Pokemon in between turn, now you are hitting for that magic 180 damage.
All for a double colorless.
A single double colorless energy from a non-EX 100 HP Pokemon knocks out the biggest and baddest Pokemon EX in the game. And the only one that this would not be able to do it to would be Virizion EX if it was using Verdant Wind. Any grass type any Pokemon that have grass energy attached to them would not be affected by this. But more times than not, you're going to still be able to do well with that against that deck because you have Yveltal EX. It's still a favorable matchup. It's very, very nice to have this kind of a deck because it's very versatile. You can switch up your attackers pretty much at the drop of a hat. Being able to utilize Evil Ball, being able to utilize Night Spear, attacking for 90 and 30 on the bench. You can pretty much make anybody an attacker in this deck, with the exception of the regular Yveltal, hitting for 100 damage sometimes. It's more used in an emergency, but everybody else is a very viable attacker, so this deck has a high amount of flexibility. Now, if you're looking at this deck here, and looking at the items and the stadiums that we have in play here, know that this is all that we run. What's missing? And would you like to elaborate on that?
All of you are probably like, hey, where's the Dark Patch? I don't see it. Dark Patch, please. Dark
Patch is not a necessity in this deck, because Yveltal EX is our energy acceleration for Zoroark. That's all we really need. Being able to move that double colorless energy with Y Cyclone is more than enough for this deck. It is absolutely not needed, and Darkness energy gets drawn into fairly easily. So, as I said, that is our item and our stadium lineup. And now we'll take a look at our energy counts. Now, as I said, Dark Patch is not a necessity, so we run 8 Darkness Energy. There we go. Spread those out there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you're cool like us, you use the nice holographic Play Pokemon Darkness Energies. As you can tell, this deck is pretty blinged out in general. It's a nice collection that we have put together between myself and N to showcase some of our nicer cards for you guys.
But for the most part, almost all of these cards here are actually fairly cheap again because they are all promos and tins and all that. So
yes, you can actually build this deck without using all these fancy full arts and everything else to make it pretty cheaply. Yveltal EX is in a tin. Darkrai EX is in a tin. You can pull Zora and Zoroark out of Legendary Treasures. You don't have to get them from Dark Explorers, even though that is the preference that N has here with the artwork. And regular Yveltal, of course, is also a rare in X and Y. Alright, so we have the 8 Darkness Energy, and we also run 4 double colorless energy. Using 4 of them maximizes our chances of being able to use Brutal Bash, and lets us attack consistently with Zoroark. So that's the deck. That is absolutely everything. And as I said, it seems to work very, very well. A Zoroark deck with a build that was a little bit different than this competitively did actually do very well in recent major tournaments. And it seems like it might be able to be a good deck to stick around even after rotation. Granted, it will lose Level Ball, but Pokemon Fan Club seems to be a decent replacement for Level Ball in this kind of a deck. So that's everything. Let us know what you think. See if you guys agree with us. It obviously has proved itself in tournament play, and it's something that N has been working on for a very long time.
And for those of you who are like me, who still like using dark Pokemon, regardless of what direction Pokemon themselves are trying to go to, know that this deck will still have power for a long time, for 1 full more year at least.
Yes, and that means that this will probably become the most powerful dark deck that you can have. Alright, so that'll about do it for today. As I said, let us know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. So, for today, we'll be signing off. As always, I am Professor K.
And I am N.
Together, we are the Pokemon Evolutionaries, and we hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more content from us, and we will see you guys next time.